Joel Embiid had his signature playoff moment, and now the Sixers are moving on with a lot of momentum against the New York Knicks. We're also going to preview all of the series in the second round and tie a bow on the end of the first round of some great game sevens. This is the All-NBA Show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, host of the Hoops Tonight over on The Volume, a man with little sleep. It's Jason Timpf. JT, we had a bunch of them go 7 in the first round, so we got no breaks. No breaks between round 1 and 2. How you feeling?
I'm doing good. It's been 16 consecutive nights so far, but we're hanging in there. I did see that the stat that we had 2 of the 13 largest upsets based on the money line in the history of that tracking, which I think goes back to like 1988. Like that is pretty crazy. But that's not even counting the Nuggets, and that's not counting a near miss in the form of that Pistons Magic series. Like it was easily the most entertaining first round of my life, and if you, at least of my time covering the league, I should say. And if you look around at the second round, like other than the Lakers Thunder, I think all 3 of the other series are compelling in their own ways I think Spurs Wolves has a crazy line, but I actually think the Wolves are going to do some damage in that series and keep things pretty competitive. So like, I think our second round is going to be mostly great.
I hope so, man. I'm with you in that. I do feel like 2 of them are for sure going to be good. That Wolves one, I'm just praying. I'm praying that one can stay close for Ant to return, because I think that would be the best series. Honestly, full strength, that might be the best series of round 2. So we'll just have to hold our breath and see what happens. But I'm with you, man. This round 1, I wish we had, it's funny, 16 straight days of games, and now we go right back into it. And I do wish we had like 2 days off, because I want to talk big picture topics about the first round. Like, does the regular season mean less? You know, there's this giant difference in defensive intensity and physicality. Like, I want to contextualize what all that stuff means. Maybe we'll mention it on the show, but we just don't have time, quite frankly. We have to go quickly. And let's start with what I think was the most interesting game from the weekend, and that is the Sixers coming back against the Celtics and getting a Game 7 win on the road and doing it behind Joel Embiid. What an I think we can break this entire series down into Embiid created a problem that the Celtics could not solve. He put pressure on them on the offensive end. He put pressure on the paint, and they just did not have the bigs to match up with him. And defensively, he allowed them to play a scheme that completely took them out of the rhythm of what they want to do and their identity. And so, to me, it's hard to overstate how big of an impact Embiid had and how dominant he was just by virtue of doing the things he is best at in that series.
Yeah, you know, there are a handful of guys over the years that have given Embiid a problem in the playoffs, just with like a combination of size and like smart IQ, footwork, taking good angles, that kind of thing. Like even just prepping for the Knicks series, that Isaiah Hartenstein did a pretty good job on Joel Embiid. You know, obviously Al Horford has done a good job against Joel Embiid head to head, but like, outside of us, you probably count the list of dudes who can guard him reasonably well on one hand. Yeah. And so when it comes to like the Embiid matchup problem, Boston is not unique in this. There are a lot of teams that Joel Embiid could run into and potentially cause massive problems for. And
real quick though, do you think there's levels to it though? Because as much as I think about this with Jokic all the time as well, that there's only a handful of guys that can stop him or slow him down. But there's still guys that are extra easy to score against, you know, where it's like, okay, this is really comfortable and I'm not using much energy. And I think those are the guys that were on for Boston.
That's fair. Yeah. Cause like, I mean, he destroyed Vucevic so bad in Game 5 in particular that we didn't even see him in Game 7. Luka Garza, we don't have to get too much into it, but Joe Mazzulla kind of galaxy brained the starting lineup and played some of his worst players and spotted them an 11-4 lead. I think Keita actually like made him work a little bit towards the end of the series. Early on, he was picking up too many easy fouls, and I actually thought there were a couple of fouls in Game 7 that I thought were a little bit questionable considering how physical the game was. But Embiid I thought the main key was on both ends of the floor, focusing on defense first. Like he was able to sit back and protect the rim. It was actually interesting when you go back and look at the different ways that Embiid's played with Nick Nurse. And for the most part, this season, they've been super aggressive with him out at the level of ball screens and like making him go out to the perimeter because that's kind of been their scheme as they try to force turnovers and get out in transition. But if you go all the way back to the 2024 series when they played the Knicks, like he was sitting back in a drop coverage. And to Nick Nurse's credit, after bringing him up all aggressive in game 4, he sat him way back in game 5, 6, and 7 in that drop. And even on the ISOs, when like Jalen Brown's trying to pick on like Tyrese Maxey in the middle of the floor, his options are limited because if he goes around Tyrese, there's Embiid just waiting at the basket. And like that more or less allowed the Sixers to defend ball screens 2-on-2 and ISOs 1-on-1 because of Embiid's ability to protect the paint. And it fundamentally altered Boston's shot profile. And especially in game 5 and game 6, they just were straight up not generating quality catch and shoot threes. And even the catch and shoot threes they generated in game 7 were for questionable shooters like Hugo Gonzalez and Jordan Walsh, guys that you kind of are okay with shooting. And it just turned into a dynamic where all of a sudden Boston couldn't keep up with the shot quality for Philly. And I think it gets deeper because like one of the things when you've got a rim protector sitting back and drop is it puts a premium on your ability to hit pull-up jump shots.
Yep. And
Tyrese Maxey and Paul George were just better at hitting pull-up jump shots than Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum were before Tatum left the series. And that I'd include Pritchard and Derek White in there as well. So like it turned into this dynamic where early in the series, Boston was breaking Philly down and winning the dynamic because their catch and shoot looks were better than Philly's pull-ups. But Embiid removed the catch and shoot looks, really.
Yep.
It turned into a pull-up shooting contest, and Philly was just better at that. And then you also had Embiid's ability to score one-on-one in the post, which was something that Boston was not able to do. And so Embiid was the best player in the series, completely flipped the dynamic on both ends of the floor. You could argue he's the best player in the Eastern Conference right now out of the teams that are available.
He's back. Just like that, he's back.
Every year before the season, Adam, we're like, what if Kawhi is healthy? Or we're like, what if Joel Embiid is healthy? And it always sounds silly because they never are. But it's like, he's healthy now. And like, good luck dealing with it.
Yeah. And you know what's funny, man, is all year I've been like high on the Wolves. Coming into the year, I called them title contenders, but what's their ceiling? I said they can win the championship. And then even when they went through the lull, it was like, yeah, but I just know this team is so tough in the playoffs. They're built for the playoffs. And the other team was the Sixers that I kept buying, and they felt like the Clippers. Like, you're buying them still, you're buying them again. And I'm like, yeah, because it just makes sense. This roster actually is really good if it will ever get together. Now, I'll tell you this. I did not expect it to come together. And you watch Game 4, Embiid comes back, and I was like, that's the problem. There's not enough runway, and now how much is it him, and how do guys play off of him? But the team slid into place, and I think they slid into place for one reason above all else, and that is that Embiid gave everything into the series. It was honestly a heroic effort, and I think it's easy even when things are ugly, it's easy to rally behind your best player when they are just like throwing everything out there. And I thought more so than any series I've watched of Embiid, I felt like he just said, screw it, I'm just going. I'm going to give everything I've got to this. And I think it galvanized the group, and they had somebody to rally behind, and you saw them come together in 3 games. They came together and played like the team that I think they would have played like if they were healthy all year.
Yeah, he had a confidence that you don't usually see with him in the postseason. Like, he's typically gotten a little shaky in the postseason where, like, he struggles to handle double teams. He's, like, rushing when he gets doubled. You'll see him, like, really lose confidence in his jump shot. I thought one of the biggest shots of the game was when he got tangled up underneath the basket. Boston's making their run, and then he hits that 3 on the right wing, trailing the play. Like, he was I think, like, 2 for 16 on threes before that shot in the series. And again, like, huge stakes, like Game 7, 1-point game, like arguably one of the top 3 or 4 biggest shots he's ever hit in his career was that trailing 3. And it was a big jump shot. And like, he had like a regular season-esque showmanship in the game too, where he's like playing to the crowd. He's talking trash. He just had this aura to him in terms of his confidence that you just typically don't see in those environments. And that goes a long way in games like that to like infusing your teammates with the belief that they can win. I mean, I think it's been one of the big narratives of the first round as you look at how, and obviously there's different quality of opponents here, but like, I do think that like if Jokic went in and just had a dominant series against Minnesota, some of his teammates might have been more confident and played better.
This is one of my biggest critiques on him. I think the deck was stacked against him in a lot of ways, but like Anthony Edwards shot 30% in that series. The deck was stacked against him being injured, but just the fact that he kept attacking, I think was like, it puts your team on your back and says, okay. And I don't think Jokic had that in games 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. He's like, I'm here with you guys. And like, and also like LeBron, like when LeBron was super keyed up and intense, his team met him at that level, and they were able to reach a level of a play on both ends of the floor to be able to win. And like, I'd argue Cade, like when those games went down into the mud, like Paolo looked scared in Game 6 when things were falling apart, and Cade had like like this like locked in expression on his face, like I'm getting a great shot or I'm getting to the foul line every single time, and you could like see that dynamic shift. It just matters. It matters. And like I will say Jalen made a lot of plays down the stretch of that game, and you know, a couple things go differently, like Peyton Pritchard hits that wide open corner 3, or Jaylen Brown had a wide open 3 at the top of the key. Jaylen Brown had a little mid-ranger that he missed off of a push off on Tyrese Maxey. They make some shots they could have won. And so it's playing the results a little bit here, but bottom line is Philly controlled that game for the most part, and in large part because their star was confident and in command of the game.
And he played so well that, I mean, health is always going to be hanging over this team. Just how long will it last? But playing so well that I look at it right now and I say, is anybody better than them at their best? Like, is anybody's best punch better than what the Sixers can be as a best punch? And that's part of what's exciting about them is you get over this one. The Celtics, to me, were the favorites to come out. You beat the favorites and you play that way. And now I look at it and say, I'm very intrigued on what they can do. Real quickly, though, we got to move quickly. Maxey can get to the rim whenever he wants. And it's a nice counterbalance to Embiid, who puts pressure on it with his size and everything else, that when late in games you overload to Joel Embiid, but you also have to guard Maxey one-on-one, and nobody can do that. His first step is just too fast. And so it gives them a nice late game option or just like counterweight. And then Paul George was exactly what you need to be talking about. You know, guys who had an incredible first round. He was exactly like ISO buckets. He gave it to you. Defense, he gave it to you. Catch and shoot threes, he gave it to you. Knowing how to play alongside two guys that are higher in the pecking order, he gave it to you. This was, if you're a Paul George fan, this was like a fever dream of everything he can be in the role that he's in.
Yeah, like when the signing took place, he was playing pretty well with the Clippers. He just immediately started getting hurt, and so it looked like this awful signing. But there was always a version of this, which is like he's kind of the perfect third guy to play off of Maxey and Embiid. And with Maxey, I thought one of the most interesting subplots of that Game 7 was, and we've all seen games like this, it just gets dragged down into the mud and no one can make a jump shot. And like after Embiid hit that 3 at the top of the key, I don't think anybody hit a jump shot over the final minutes. It was just a whole lot of like miss here. Embiid was missing. Guys were missing their jump shots. And Tyrese was able to get to the rim a couple of times. And it generates something that didn't have variance by breaking Kata's contain and ball screens by getting downhill. And like it's a very nice compliment to the pull-up jump shooting attack that they have, because it gives them something a little bit more reliable in those spots.
How about VJ Edgecombe? I want to give him this shout out. You know, he's a rookie. He showed up basically twice in the series where he was making shots. One of those happened to be Game 7, which was huge for them. But I just love the belief, the spirit and belief that he plays with is kind of what you need. I think the Sixers have 6 guys with Grimes off the bench and then they're starting 5. But the fact that you can count on VJ Edgecombe to this degree, it says a lot. We talked a lot about Rookie of the Year and, you know, well, Khan's doing it on a team with stakes and this or that. These are real stakes. Game 7 of a playoff series with legacies on the line, and he delivers that performance. I just have so much belief in that guy because he plays with belief in himself.
Yeah, he was, I want to say 2 for 26 or 2 for 24 on threes in Game 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
So everything but the 2 games.
But he won 2 games with his ability to catch and shoot threes.
Isn't that what you need from your 5th guy?
They lose Game 7 and they lose Game 2 if he doesn't hit all those those catch and shoot jump shots. And he also defensively, I think, has a kind of turned into a real weapon for them. And I think he's actually one of the most interesting parts of a Knicks series, in the sense that like if you go back to what happened in 2024, Brunson was cooking, but they didn't have a guard who could defend. So it was like Nick Batum was out there and like Kelly Oubre was trying to chase him, but he's at a size, he's too big in a way that can be a little bit unfortunate in that matchup. There was like a lot of Buddy Hield getting switched on to Jalen Brunson looking to attack against Embiid and drop. And it's like VJ Edgecombe presents the type of guy that they want. Kind of like what Andrew Nembhard has done to Jalen Brunson in some of their matchups where like he's smaller and can beat him to spots.
Yep.
And I think that makes VJ like one of the most important kind of like swing factors for a conference semis matchup with New York is just he's the right kind of guard to deploy in a drop coverage versus Jalen Brunson.
Yeah. The last thing I have on this one before we move on to the next one, how do we analyze the Boston's year and their arc? On the one hand, Denver and Boston, I think were the two teams that were like, are both could be a dynasty. Is this going to go back? When are these two teams going to face each other? Denver looks like the ride is over to some degree, or at least that they're going to have to refigure out a lot of things on the margins at the very least. But I wonder if the same is kind of sneaky true for Boston. This one I haven't really like dissected enough, but there is something too. I'm not saying that the Sixers exposed something in them, but I do wonder if it's like, hey, they might have reached the peak, with the team they had with Drew Holiday and everything else, and it's going to be hard to replicate all the margins that they had in that year. And then when they don't have the margins covered like that, are they just as vulnerable as every other good team? So what do you make of them, and do you see a little bit of what you see in Denver with the Celtics?
I think that there is some truth to the fact that winning in the playoffs is about winning against 4 different types of teams. And that usually puts a strain on your versatility in a way that one series or the regular season does not. And when you look at some of these other teams in the East, like, for instance, like if the Knicks need to just play Mitchell Robinson 30 minutes a game in the next round, they can. That's a look that they have. If OKC runs into like Detroit in the finals and needs to play 2 bigs the entire series, they can do that. I even think San Antonio has that flexibility with Cornette and Victor Wembanyama. And like, whether it's small ball, 2 big looks, prioritizing shooting, prioritizing defense, there's a certain amount of versatility that you need in the postseason. And there's a version of this story where they don't have to face Philly for whatever reason. And maybe Boston looks fine and they don't run into that problem, but it did appear to be a fail point for them.
Right.
I think that the 2 things that screamed off the screen for me with Boston was, one, another type of high level front court talent. I the way I've described this in my show is like, for this summer, the best player available that's either in that like Aaron Gordon-esque like big power forward look that you can play alongside Tatum and Brown, or a center, like a legitimate like bigger, bulkier, more versatile center. And then I also think that they need a guard who can beat people off the dribble. That was the other thing that really stood out to me, the difference between this like speed and dribble penetration with VJ and Tyrese. But we've seen this around the league a little bit with like, look at OKC with AJ Mitchell's ability to get dribble penetration. Look at Jamal Shed with Toronto and the damage he did in this series by just being able to beat people off the dribble. So those are the 2 things that I think are really missing. The tricky thing for Boston is they really only have 2 avenues to make a dramatic improvement. It's trade Derek or trade Jalen. And that gets tricky because like you could do a let's say you wanted to swap like Derek and Hugo Gonzalez for Aaron Gordon. And now Denver's getting an awesome 2-way guard who can really shoot, who's a local. And they're getting, a forward that's an athlete that would help in the long run for a team that desperately needs athletic forwards. It's like, for Boston, like Derek White and Jason Tatum and their chemistry and their 2-man game has been one of the most reliable staples of that team for years. You remove that, it fundamentally alters the team. And then not to mention, like, for Denver, you have the gaping hole at power forward if you do something like that, unless you think Peyton Watson can, but you and I have talked about that. We think he's more of a 3. So like it's hard to find some trades that make sense. You trade Jaylen Brown, I think you can get a lot back. Don't get me wrong. But like that fundamentally alters your team. And now there's a lot of pressure on a Jason Tatum who's post Achilles surgery to like be your top tier superstar. And he just physically broke down this year, although there's some context there coming back from the Achilles that fast. But like, it's just hard. It's hard to, if you look at their salaries, Sam Hauser's the only other guy making over 10, and he's making like just over 10. So it's hard to find trades that really make sense for this group, and it just kind of complicates matters.
They have a smart front office. I'm more just, it sounds hot takey, but I'm more talking about, I'm more looking at this as teams have an identity. This is who we are. And then you try to be as versatile as you can so you're not vulnerable. Your vulnerabilities are as small as possible going into the playoffs. Theirs might be, they might have a big vulnerability that by virtue of their identity won't be able to be covered for. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. But we don't have time to spend too much on it. I do want to move on to the next one because it's so fascinating and it starts tonight. And that is the 76ers and the Knicks. We get two of the best bigs of this era going head to head and maybe even a little bit of bad blood. So this series is completely different. What are the key spots here? I have a list of things that I think are keys, but I'll let you start here. Oh, actually, I'll lead you. Karl-Anthony Towns is a different matchup for Joel Embiid, especially on the defensive end. He wants to shoot the three. That naturally should take Embiid out of the paint.
He is one of the few, very few stretch fives in the NBA that are like, you have to be out there. There aren't many. Like if I had to, off the top of my head, I'd be like Porzingis, Cat, and Wembanyama, and that might be the end of the list. Maybe Jokic when he's in rhythm.
Definitely not Jokic.
But like for the most part, most of these guys, like if it's Chet, you're like, if you're Chet, it's like make a couple and then I'll close out. If it's Bam, it's like make a couple and then I'll close out. Like Vooch, like most of these guys, you're like, go ahead, man, and we'll talk about this later. Al Horford, I think, is one that you kind of have to close out on. So there's less than 5 is my point. So it's very rare.
Yeah.
The trick is, because I do think this is the pivot point of the series. Kat and Joel Embiid hate each other.
So good.
And Joel Embiid has caused lots of problems for him on the other end. There was a game this year, Adam, where Embiid fouled Kat out in 16 minutes of play.
Gonna try it again.
And so if this is what I mean when I say it's the pivot point of the series. If Embiid can hang back at the rim, I think they're going to win. But if they can put Embiid in the blender, I think they're going to lose. And there's two different ways that they can do that. Like, obviously, there's the Cat look, but they actually won a game this year. In the game I'm talking about, where Cat picked up the fouls and fouled out in 16 minutes, the Knicks went small, and they guarded Embiid with OG and doubled. And then they put that small ball group driving and kicking, and Embiid was lost. And they got a wide open three every single time down the floor. So I think it's tricky. And where if Joel Embiid can foul Cat off the floor and force Mitchell Robinson to play big minutes, and you put VJ on Jalen and you run that drop coverage and Embiid sits at the basket, I think Philly can have some success in the series, even though Mitch actually guards Embiid pretty well and can make life harder for him there. I just think that's an aggregate battle that favors Philly, whereas even if Embiid's doing some damage to Cat, if they're able to space him out, I think it makes the Knicks offense more comfortable, and then I think the Knicks have an advantage.
That'll be like the central battleground, and it's great when the central battleground is, a rivalry, a positional rivalry. These are two of the great centers, and this is a big one for both of them. Have a lot sort of on the line. Let's see what else we have here. What else? I think Maxey playing at this high level is really big for it.
Too fast.
He's too fast for them, and I think that could be that's what's unique about the Sixers is you could actually see this series being more about Maxey, where I think the last one was more about Embiid. Maxey can be the guy that actually ends up putting the pressure on him in the other direction. So that's another battleground here.
Tyrese averaged over 30 on over 50% from the field and over 50% from three in this matchup in the regular season. And it's just really that simple. Deuce McBride's really the only player that can remotely hang with him athletically. He's too fast for all of their wings. And there's another issue that's like if New York downsizes and plays a lot of deuce, that kind of alters the physical profile of the series. Paul George was really bad in their regular season matchups, but like I just take all that with a grain of salt because it just doesn't look like the same Paul George right now. It looks like a completely different player. So I think that kind of makes things complicated. I do think New York has a depth advantage. We saw Nick Nurse go to basically a 6-man rotation in game 7.
There's a big drop off after that.
2 extremely short Andre Drummond shifts in there, but they really shortened their rotation in Game 7. I think the Knicks will comfortably play 8 guys in this series. So, like, I think the longer it goes, especially with Embiid kind of being a little banged up and struggling to sustain, I think it kind of favors New York, and New York does have home court advantage. And so right now I'm actually leaning slightly towards the Knicks, but Joel Embiid's the best player in the series. That team is playing extremely well. And if he just goes out there and physically dominates New York's front line and puts them into a predicament where they have to play a bunch of Mitch, I think that could tilt things back towards Philly.
The Embiid thing is interesting too, because it is 4 games, which is just different than 7. 7's exhausting. He played 4, but the second round is always the most condensed one for whatever reason. Yeah. And so, and they went 7, so they got a late start. It is possible that this is like by game 4, we're seeing Embiid really wear down in just a very competitive series when you only trust 6 guys. Mm-hmm. I think I lean towards the Knicks too, but my God, I didn't think the Sixers were going to beat the Celtics. And they did it, and they're playing their best basketball, and they look like they know who they are, which is exciting because I don't feel like the Sixers have known who they are like in every playoffs they've had. I feel like they know who they are right now, and we'll see if that continues. Any final thoughts on that series that you just want to mention?
No, I'm just excited. I think it's a classic Eastern Conference battle. That's one that I'm really looking forward to.
It's a really classic one. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I want to get to these other games. Pistons Magic delivered some very interesting storylines, another 3-1 comeback. And then we're going to talk about the Pistons and the Cavs in round 2. And then later, quick hitters on Lakers Thunder and Wolves Spurs. Because we are up against Mother's Day, which is this Sunday. Be a good son or husband if you're doing this for your wife, and go to Aura Frames. It's a great way to mix up your standard Mother's Day playbook. Aura Frames, it's a picture frame, a really good looking picture frame that displays digital photos or videos. Here's what you get with it. It's a really cool thing. You get free unlimited storage. You can add as many photos and videos as you want. You can preload the photos before they ship. So when you're ordering this online, you can upload photos. It'll come in this gift box that it's a premium gift box with no price tag. And when she opens it, it'll already have the photos right there. You can share your photos and videos effortlessly. If you just download the Aura app, you can text photos straight to your frame. So unlimited storage, and you can just upload whatever you want, videos and photos with unlimited storage. And then they have the #1 app on the App Store on Christmas Day in 2025. Probably going to make a repeat of that here for Mother's Day. Make Mother's Day special with Aura Frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. You can save on the gifts mom loves by visiting auraframes.com. For a limited time, listeners can get $25 off their best-selling Carver mat frame with code ALLNBA. That's all one word, ALLNBA. That's auraframes.com, promo code ALLNBA. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $250 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props to your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your picks with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Must be 21 or older and present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. Make sure you throw us a like here if you're enjoying it. We got 1 of 4 series down. Let's go to the other one here. The Pistons come back on the Magic from 3-1. My God, what a twist and turn from a narrative standpoint for this series. The Pistons were shut down, and maybe would have been if it weren't for Franz Wagner getting hurt. I don't know. But we had a Tobias Harris heater in the second quarter of this game. But first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you think that the Magic broke in Game 6 when they went an hour without scoring a single basket, an hour of real time, and I don't remember how much it was in game time, because it did feel like as soon as they got punched in Game 7, the series was over, where instead of it being back and forth. So do you think that was just too hard to bounce back from that cold of a streak, a historic cold streak?
Yeah, I would have been absolutely stunned if they had won Game 7, even though they had competed in most of two of the other 3 road games in the series. You could really see that they had been shook and had lost their confidence, and Detroit really found a formula. That was really the formula throughout the series, was like, if we play really, really good defense for like a 2 or 3 minute stretch, this team will literally fall apart. And if you look at it, like whether it was the third quarter of Game 2, where they completely decomposed. It was a 30-3 run, something like that. Game 3, Orlando was up by like 15 in the fourth quarter, and they almost blew it if it wasn't for Franz hitting those late jumpers. Game 4, they almost fell apart late. You just have the banked in 3, obviously, that kind of turned things around. Game 5 was the kind of back and forth one, but I think in Game 4 there was another 33-11 run in the first half. Like, Orlando had these extended stretches where they just completely fell apart at various points in the series. And so Game 6 was the most dramatic example, but it was kind of a recurring theme, which is like, when Orlando's feeling good and the jumpers are falling and they're playing loose and free, like Paolo looks great, the team looks great. But as soon as Detroit really tightened the screws, like, Orlando would literally fall apart. And I do think like that was where the loss of Franz really hurt, because Franz is the closest thing to like a point guard on the team. And he's not really a point guard, but like, he's the closest thing. And if you really look at Game 1 in particular in the fourth quarter, like, because Paolo was great in the third quarter, but in Game 1, it was Franz running ball screens and making that first read that set up the 4-on-3 sequences that they kept paying off with wide open shots and dunks that really won them that game. And they didn't have that the rest of the series after Franz went out. And so I think that was a big part of it. But I was feeling the same way in Game 7. I'm like, as soon as Detroit lands one punch, this thing is over. And it was Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, who, by the way, this is a crazy stat for you. Just 4 times in his previous 25 playoff games had Tobias scored 20-plus points.
Wow, he had 30, right?
And he did it in 5 straight games to end this series.
Wow, that's a great stat.
And that really was the thing that swung it. And when he landed that punch, and obviously Danis Jenkins helped in the third quarter, but like, I thought it was over in the second quarter.
This is like a redemption arc for a lot of people. Rudy Gobert, playoffs, is he a guy that gets exposed? You've got, here with Tobias Harris, even Joel Embiid, like coming through. It's a kind of a redemption playoffs so far. The only other note I have on this one, I think it's underrated what Cade Cunningham did. When I watch these games, I know it's cliche to say, but they really do lack like a dynamic offensive punch. He's running uphill with ankle weights on. But I just thought when I watched him play, I was like, he's so calm. He's so in control. He keeps attacking. He made tough shots. He made tough plays. And I actually think that Cade is like, this is not a hot take. Everybody thinks Cade is awesome. I think he might be more awesome than he even looks. And one of these days, the Pistons are going to field a really special team around him. And I think he's going to have a special playoff run because he's that dynamic.
Yeah, I was completely blown away by him. I thought even when things were not going well, it was a little bit overrated in the sense that, or I should say like overstated in the sense that like the dynamic in the series was very complicated. He was essentially expected to handle everything. There wasn't a single secondary ball handler, especially early in the series, because that was when Tobias was really struggling. And there was like a defensive layering with Orlando when Franz was healthy, where Franz was doing the best job on Paolo, but then you also had all of these like help layers behind him, and it was causing this dynamic where he was turning the basketball over and making some sloppy mistakes. But even despite that, he was averaging right around 30 points per game, and he was in like the mid 50s in true shooting in a series where like Orlando was up 3-1 with a true shooting percentage of 49%. So it was one of those things where like I thought like people were overreacting to some of the efficiency stuff in a series where like no one was efficient.
Yep.
So like it's all
those numbers are actually great if we were just looking at this series.
Exactly. Like you almost look at that like, yeah, I want Cade shooting because it's by far the best shot that we can get right now. And like then all of a sudden he started hitting them at a really high rate, and he finished the series with a true shooting over 60 on like 32 points per game or whatever it was. I'm glad you called out the jump shooting. I just pulled up the numbers because I wanted to read them for everybody. He took 40 pull-up twos in the series, made 19. That's 48%. Took 34 pull-up threes, made 13. That's 38%.
Yeah.
So in a series where it was hard to come by points, he got 1.04 points per pull-up jump shot. That's a really efficient number. And then he shot really well on catch and shoots. He was 41% on catch and shoot threes in the series. So like his jump shot was there. He was methodical, working his way to his spots whenever the team needed a bucket. It felt like if he ever needed a bucket, he could get Desmond Bane or Jalen Suggs on a switch and kind of work him to the elbow and get to his little snatchback dribble and hit a little pull-up jump shot. A big criticism of him in his career is that rim finishing. He was 59% at the rim in this series. Like, I was like legitimately blown away by Cade. And like, frankly, when you really dig into like how up against it they were in terms of like down 24 in the first half of game 6 and how brilliant he was in that second half, he straight up backpacked these dudes and carried them through to the next round. Like,
it was a carry job, man.
I am like, I'm all in on Cade. I think he's awesome.
Me too. And it's just like, it's not going to be impressive, I think, because this team they're easy to guard. There's an easiness to guard of them that's going to make him not look great, but I'm buying the stock. I'll buy the dip whenever they bow out. All right. So, and then we'll go real quickly. Cavs Raptors. I don't have a ton of notes on this one. Cavs opened it up. This series was weird. I thought just kind of back and forth, but the Cavs opened this one up to a 20-point game. It got kind of close down the stretch, but anything you want to say about Cavs Raptors? Salute the Raptors. I thought it was a great series, and salute Scotty Barnes, who I just think is incredible and was on display in the series.
Yeah, because Mitchell and Harden were still pretty underwhelming. They both made big plays at various stretches. Like Harden did a good job generating good three-point shot looks by driving against Toronto's double teams. Mitchell just hit a handful of big shots and a handful of big spots. But like really the guys that turned the series for me were the bigs, Mobley and Allen, and they struggled mightily in game 3 and in game 4. And the rest of the series, they really locked in and were great. And I thought Jared Allen in particular obviously was the hero in game 7 with the job that he did in that third quarter run. Max Strus's full court pressure through that third quarter, just picking up Scotty and picking up RJ Barrett as they were bringing the ball up the floor. Their role players really came through. And I think that's going to have to be, as we like consider next round, I think that's going to have to be a primary driving force because Donovan Mitchell and James Harden are going to have another brutal series with like excellent perimeter defenders and physicality and ball pressure and just wearing them down and baiting them into turnovers. And I think one of the most interesting dynamics of that series is the simple fact that like a lot of the stuff that Detroit couldn't do to Orlando because they were too big and strong for them to bully, all of a sudden they are big and strong enough to do some bullying against Cleveland. And I think a lot of people could get a little fooled by what happened in the last round. I think Detroit's very, very dangerous in the second round series.
Jalen Duren becomes really interesting to me because when you talk about the physicality, he comes to the forefront for me personally. He had a really rough series, but it's a physical front court. Mobley and Allen are good, and they are tall, but they're good in a different way. And so I'm very curious if he can sort of impose his own physicality on this series. To me, that's like one of the most interesting storylines is the Jalen Duren versus that front court.
Yeah, let me give you some stats because this is crazy. The Jalen Duren stuff against Orlando was a factor in the regular season too. So in 4 games against the Magic, he didn't have a single 20-point game, and he had 12 total offensive rebounds. So it was clear that was an issue in the regular season too. And then it became an even bigger issue, although I thought Duren was pretty good in game 7. In the last 2 games versus Cleveland this year, he averaged 28.5 points per game.
Man.
And he had 13 offensive rebounds in just the 2 games. And I watched a bunch of the film this morning. He throws Jared Allen around like a rag doll. And he can drive right through his chest and get to the foul line and get all the way to the rim. And like, I think we're going to see a return to form of Jalen Duren as like that secondary scorer alongside Cade in this series because he just has a huge physical advantage. And like, it really is that simple. Like they couldn't bully Orlando and they can bully Cleveland. And that will change the physical dynamic. And like, frankly, Adam, like how many times in the last couple of years have we seen a series where we're like, oh, this team's going to do this. And then all of a sudden they just get manhandled.
Right.
Like the Lakers versus the Timberwolves, Minnesota versus Denver, when Houston started to have advantages over the Lakers over the tail end of that series. Like you dig into it and it's like every year that gets underrated as an aspect of the postseason. Can you put your hands on people and throw them around and really control them physically? And I think Detroit's going to kind of have like a little bit of a renaissance in this series as a bully ball team.
It'll be interesting. I do think this is one of the storylines of the playoffs, though, is that there are teams that just have physical advantages that they're able to press in ways that feel even extreme relative to previous years. And if you have one of those, it becomes just like shooting. Like I think a couple of years back, we'd just think shooting. Now there is hey, this team's just too big and strong for you. And if that is the case in the Cleveland one, that'll be tough. I think with Cleveland is another one of these teams, too, that – if they would have lost Game 7, I think we all would agree that they're probably blowing that team up. Now you get into a second round, and I do wonder if it's the same stakes. Like the Cavs at some point, are you a real contender because you made it to the second round? I don't think so. I think that they're at this point where they need to see some kind of bigger success than this. So I think it means a lot to them. Let's move on now and touch on these other Western Conference ones. And I'll start with what I think is the easy one to assess. Maybe that's famous last words. And that's Lakers Thunder.
It's not famous last words, Adam.
Well, I got to hedge my bet here in case, somebody clips this, wants to bring it back to me if the Lakers end up winning the series. But look, man, the Thunder are so good at what they do. And what they do, and they do a lot of things, but the number one thing I'm talking about here is they put pressure on your ball handlers, and they just make life hell for you in the half court trying to get into your sets. I'm not sure. If they had Luka Doncic, I could talk myself into. He's such a curveball. Even though the regular season they were able to, eat this up. I think you look at that and you could talk yourself into it. But Austin Reeves against OKC's ball pressure, I'm very curious, man, if he can be effective. And this is not a knock on Austin Reeves. It's a credit to OKC's defense, which just has so many guys to throw at somebody like Austin Reeves.
Yeah, I'm with you that like if Luka was healthy, I think people are insane to think that OKC would just blow him out every game, because if you really dig into what happened in those games, the two games where they got blown out in OKC, two things happened in both games. One, the Lakers fell apart immediately against the ball pressure, where like over the course of a series, because they would just see the same thing over and over again. Like even Phoenix got to the point where they were able to take care of the basketball against OKC. So like there's a certain amount of like you're going through your regular season and all of a sudden you roll up in OKC and it's like, oh crap, this is different. You kind of soil yourself a little bit. Two, OKC shot 45% on catch and shoot threes against the Lakers in the regular season. They shot outrageously well. And especially in those ones in OKC, like they just made every damn three they took. So like, even though the Thunder are clearly better, the blowouts were a factor of a couple of like extenuating circumstances that would be hard to sustain over a 7-game series. The game that I actually think is most informative for the Lakers offense in this matchup is the one in LA this year, where the Lakers actually kept it pretty competitive without Luka and without Shea. And it turned into like a J-Dub versus LeBron and Austin battle. And the Thunder won, but it was a close competitive battle. Austin was better than he was in the other couple of games. LeBron dominated from the post. LeBron personally generated 9 made field goals in that game just out of post-ups. And so that to me is like the pathway for the Lakers to keep it competitive. Let me be abundantly clear up front. I think OKC is going to sweep them. But the pathway for the Lakers is if they can take care of the basketball, if they don't struggle to get the ball off the floor, and then in the half court, they got to post LeBron up a ton. Austin did have a lot of success when he was aggressive in ball screens looking to score. And then on defense, the one kind of like silver lining that I found in the film and from the numbers for the defense, they ran 30 possessions of zone against the Thunder in the regular season and only allowed 24 points, which is 0.8.
Probably going to run a lot of it in the series.
I think we'll see a lot of zone. And so like my thing is like, what does it look like if the Lakers win a game and they don't get swept? It looks like they don't turn the basketball over. LeBron posts up a ton. Austin gets cooking in pick and roll, and they run a lot of zone. That's what I think it ends up looking like. But the odds of them like stealing a game in OKC and like Luka coming back from his hamstring strain and actually having what it takes to win 4 games are like that outcome is essentially off the table for me.
Is there a worse team you would want to test a hamstring on than the
OKC
Thunder? Like
exactly.
They are a hamstring stress test, or truly. Two things for you though on the LeBron point. The first one is, do you think that he wore down over the course of this last series because he was so transcendent early on? And do you think there's something to, you got to go play 7 now against OKC? Like, I know it's impressive what he's been able to do at this age and everything else, but that is going to physically test you as much as anything playing this team. And then number 2, I love your point about the post, but here's an underrated thing about where the league is evolving. It's hard to get the ball into the post.
Yeah.
Because when you have physical, fast, athletic defenders, this is what really, like when people are talking about Denver and the struggles, and Jokic in particular struggles against Minnesota, he didn't get the ball in the post because nobody could dribble the ball across half court and get it into position to where he could catch it in the post. So his post entries started as drives where he had to turn his back to you, so you're already using a certain amount of energy. Do you think that the Lakers can get him post touches where he doesn't have to work really hard just to catch the ball and then work hard to score?
I thought that the Rockets did a lot to try to bother that with Tyrese, and they were really showing with Şengün on the cross screen action to try to stop LeBron from getting it on the cross screen. And LeBron, literally the only player in the first round who generated more points out of the post was Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid generated 50 in 4 games, and LeBron generated 44 in 6 games, which was the second most in the league.
That's
Third place was
Embiid,
Scotty Barnes at 35. So the pretty large gap between
Wow.
LeBron and the rest of the league after Embiid. So like, and if you look at the regular season film, LeBron killed OKC in the post. So like, I'm going to put it this way. I think LeBron is going to have enough success in the post one-on-one against the Thunder that the Thunder are going to start doubling him all the time. And I don't think LeBron is the fail point for the Lakers in this series. I think it's the role players.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of like, can Austin score against this defense? And can these role players make shots against the intensity of the OKC closeouts, which I think will be a fail point. Like, Ayton, for instance, like struggled just to catch and finish in this matchup. I charted every single Lakers turnover this year because I was trying to like figure out where the turnovers were coming from. And like Ayton had 3 on catches in the lane. There were 6 turnovers this year just from role players trying to dribble. So like
you're saying in against OKC, not all year long.
Just against OKC.
Yeah. Okay.
And only in the 2.5 games that they played their best guys. I did not count garbage time of the 3rd game after Luka got hurt, and I did not count the 4th game where they didn't play any of their dudes. Yeah. But they had 47 turnovers in that 2.5 game stretch.
That's crazy, man.
And like, yeah, but like anytime one of the role players tried to put the ball on the floor, it was a turnover. Like, so I think the fail point is really the rest of the group. And the other thing too, you got to keep in mind is like the way that these teams like to defend. So like Houston really, really, really wanted to make LeBron a scorer and make Austin a scorer. So they did guard post-ups one-on-one a lot. They did guard pick and rolls 2-on-2 a lot, try to stay home on the shooters. That's why the Lakers' three-point volume was so low in the series. They shot well when they got them, but the volume was pretty low. The Thunder, they concede threes. They're a team that gives up a high 3-point volume, and they really are aggressive on the ball. So like it's going to be a very different look. That's going to put a lot of stress on the Lakers to like process 4-on-3s and attack closeouts and knock down threes against one of the most athletic perimeter defenses in the league. So it's a very different challenge. And I think the fail point in all likelihood will be the role players and then the defense. Like Shea just cut them to pieces off the drive in their regular season film.
I don't think this one will be competitive, but we'll wait and see. We'll wait and find out. This next one I want to say is, though, the last one, Wolves Spurs. Man, I think this series can be interesting if Anthony Edwards could come back. And by the way, man, the injury that he had, very similar to the one Jokic had that kept him out 6 weeks, this idea that he might now come back in games 3 or 4, I will say, who knows? In today's day and age, everybody is doing this game where it's like, he's questionable, he's upgraded, whatever. Who knows if he actually plays? But God, I hope so, because this team deserves it. This Wolves team really, truly does deserve a chance. And I think if he were healthy in this, I actually love their chances for it. But here's my first question. But if he's not, it's hard for me to think that they can beat that team, but who knows? First question I have is who can guard Fox? The Wolves just did a masterclass in performance of guarding Denver. But one thing Denver doesn't have is quick players. De'Aaron Fox is quick, and that's a completely different type of defensive assignment. And so my first question is this a De'Aaron Fox series, and does he get going? Or is a player like Jalen Clark and maybe even Jaden McDaniels actually figure out a way to like have an impact on him?
Jaden McDaniels got the De'Aaron Fox assignment in the games that I was watching most closely, which was the 2 clutch games that they played. And for the record, you're right. De'Aaron Fox was a very different type of challenge for Jaden. Now, I always take regular season Timberwolves footage with a grain of salt because these guys
all-time player risers / all-time regular season fallers. Like,
I was watching one of the games and I was like in the beginning of the first quarter, which every time I go, it's so funny. You're prepping for the first round and you're watching film and you're like, okay, let's see this matchup. Let's see that matchup. Then you watch the first round. Then you go back to watch regular season basketball to prep for the second round. And that's when you're like, oh yeah, this is different. It just feels like super relaxed and not even in the same stratosphere of intensity.
so true.
So again, I was watching one of the Spurs games against the Wolves and the Spurs announcers are like, Wolves gave up 140 last night. I was just like, and they held the Nuggets under 100, 4 times?
I know. It is so funny, man. They probably get the medal this year for team that's most different from their default self in the regular season.
Easily. And like I was all over that ever since last year. Like this is they are the switch flippingest team in the NBA.
This is why I never gave up on them. It's why I believed in them at the beginning of the year and still believed them when they went on their multiple lulls throughout the year. I was like, yeah, but I just know what this team is, man.
Exactly. But anyway, so Jaden obviously could ratchet it up, but Duren, the big thing I noticed with Duren was he was able to get Jaden out of position more. And when he got him out of position with his speed, he would drive into Jaden's chest and bump him off before he got to that separation. One of the things that Jamal struggled with Jaden is he was trying to bump him off in like a static situation where he wasn't, because Jaden wasn't off balance, he wasn't able to get separation. Fox will like hit a series of moves and Jaden will be in a recovery step and then he'll bump him. And because he doesn't really have his base, he can get separation. And he was able to get to his little pull-up 15-footer pretty easily versus Jaden. So that is definitely one interesting piece of it. Where I think Minnesota has the advantage is with the Gobert, Julius Randle piece defensively. Julius, like Aaron Gordon, is one of those big physical forwards that can cause problems for Wemby. And in the game that the Wolves beat the Spurs, Julius had some amazing on-ball defensive possessions against Victor Wembanyama down the stretch and forced him into basically the same kinds of shots that he was getting against Aaron Gordon in that Saturday game a month ago. So I really think that in combination with Gobert roaming off of Steph Castle will cause a lot of problems for the baseline of San Antonio's offense. Now, the reason why I'm still picking San Antonio and why we would be smart to favor them is they can cause the same problem for Minnesota, which is Minnesota every year has lost in the postseason when they finally ran into a team that could protect the rim and put athletes on Ant. And that is something that San Antonio can do with Victor Wembanyama and with Steph Castle. And so San Antonio is going to cause just as many problems for Minnesota's defense or offense. But the point is like, I think Minnesota's defense is going to be problematic enough for San Antonio's offense that this is going to be a series where they win 2 games and we're going to have a game 6. And like in that case, you'd be foolish to just count Anthony Edwards out if he gets his pull-up 3-point shot going. Cause like the game they won, Ant took over, hit a huge pull-up 3 over Steph Castle on the left wing. He won the game by beating Victor on a switch and hitting a little bank shot in the lane that ended up being the game winner. Like I just think this is going to be a close and competitive series. So even though I'm favoring San Antonio, I'm picking San Antonio. The line was insane. It was like 20-1 for San Antonio. I was like now obviously they didn't know that Ant was coming back yet, but I think everybody thought he'd come back soon. Like I think everyone thought like game 3.
I mean, we'll still see.
Yeah, and we'll see. But yeah, I just genuinely like was shocked. But like even without Ant, I think they're going to win a game in this series just with their defense. So like I just am surprised at how underrated how underrated the Wolves were just as a competitive team in this series.
Here's why I don't have as much faith, even though I want to. Would you say that Minnesota really took it to Denver's defense and were able to get where they wanted to against Denver's defense?
Yes, by just physically overpowering them. Yeah.
And getting to the rim and challenging a non-rim protector in Nikola Jokic. They still had a 112 offensive rating in that series.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say Denver played good defense or anything. It's not the case. They were able to attack. But even with all of that, they still had an average offense. And now you're going up against Victor Wembanyama, Steph Castle, an actual good defense. And I just don't know if they can score enough, especially without Anthony Edwards. Can they score enough to actually win this? Even if they are effective defensively, I just am worried they're going to be completely ineffective offensively, given, that they actually are now facing a team that has great defenders all over the court. So that's what it comes down to, is they might execute their defensive game plan, do an ace job, but they might end up with 96 points in every single game. And will that be enough against that team? I don't know.
It's going to be a low-scoring series. I wouldn't be surprised if San Antonio got one of their home games where they hit a bunch of threes and won by 15, 20 points. But in Minnesota does have a little bit of that game one from last round itis, where if they don't think they're going to win, they can get a little sloppy and get a little off the rails. But yeah, I think this series is in the mud on both ends of the floor.
Well, to your point, and you brought this up in the Denver series, it was such a momentum matchup, and it always has been against those two, that you start getting stops and it snowballs, and they're 20-0 runs. I just don't think they're going to get 20-0 runs against San Antonio. You can against Denver. I don't think you can against them, and so are you going to get up to enough points to win? I don't know. And then the big question for me, Victor Wembanyama against physicality. This will be they have physical front court. They will be able to challenge him. I think he'll hold up in this matchup, but it will be a bigger test. By the way, did you see Wemby's comment? He's so funny, man, when he was asked about the Blazers and
the basketball chess match thing?
Well, where he basically was just they were a limited team, and so we're excited to kind of have a real challenge. Now, it's almost dismissive.
He specifically mentioned how he's excited to get into a basketball tactical battle, and I was I get it. Here's the thing, Portland's not even without Ant. I think Minnesota is just a much better team than Portland. Yeah. So it's worth acknowledging. But yeah, when I saw that, I was they were guarding Steph Castle with centers. They tried small ball. They tried some stuff that you're going to see.
It was like a warm up, a tune up, a practice, exactly. An exhibition. This is exhibition round. Geez, ouch. And I don't even think he was trying to be saucy. I think he was just talking, which is
just being honest.
So it'll be interesting to see. Also, by the way, McDaniel said they get up for the Denver series. I'm so curious to see if they're if they come out and just have no energy in this round, it'll be truly remarkable to be wow, this is a team that was all energy and motivation in the last one. So hopefully they bring that one to this.
I wouldn't be surprised if they got beat tonight pretty bad and then came out much better in game 2, though. They have a little bit of that. You saw it, and it kind of annoyed me in game 1, but then in retrospect, I'm it's just confidence, I suppose. But they were all loose and smiles and giggling and having fun when they were getting beat down the stretch of game 1 against Denver. And then they just came back in game 2, and they were we got you guys. There is an unwavering confidence with that group that doesn't really fade regardless of what their circumstances.
How would you grade round 1 if you were to give it a grade, just in entertainment?
A+. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was just it was ripe with storylines and upsets, and even the teams that got eliminated, Boston, Houston, Denver, all have super interesting off seasons ahead of them. We had the birth of kind of new stars in the form of Cade's big coming out party, and obviously Victor Wembanyama's first playoff moment. I will say, as a LeBron fan, getting to watch LeBron, I thought when the Luka trade was made, the days of watching LeBron be the best player in a playoff series and win were over. Yeah. Nope, got to see that again, and that was a really, really fun experience. I don't know if you saw the clip. Did you see the clip from game 3 right before the game winner going around this morning, where he was I'm getting locked in?
Yeah, I did see that.
And everyone's talking about how it's so cool LeBron was locked in before his game winner. I'm no, you guys don't realize what was happening there. He was yelling at a teammate. Somebody on the bench was messing around, and he was I'm locked in. You need to lock in, bro. Yeah. He was getting on a teammate. And what I thought was cool about that is it's such an underrated part of the leadership part, which is you set a tone for what the level of seriousness is.
Yes.
And it resonates down through the roster. And you want to know why DeAndre Ayton's playing the first good basketball of his entire damn career? I shouldn't say entire damn career. That was rude. Since the 2021 finals. You want to know why? It's because of this. It's because he's got a leader that doesn't accept unserious behavior, and I with the Kevin Durant thing. I remember a while back, Kevin Durant was kind of making light of the leadership thing as if it's some sort of ethereal concept that is beyond comprehension. And while there's some truth to the fact that leadership can take on different roles, I do think that you need someone that has that type of attitude. I've talked about this with Luka versus Jokic, and I mean, it always sucks to talk about right now because Jokic is just the
down so bad,
in the mud,
down so bad, yeah,
it's in the mud. But like, there are times where like things are going south for the Lakers, and Luka doesn't really have that like, hey, let's go kind of attitude. But Jokic does have that where like you see it in his eyes. His eyes go big and he's yelling and he's talking to the refs and it's just like it's super keyed up, and it kind of forces you to get on board with him or be left behind. And like, yes, leadership is ethereal, but I do think that there is a real value in having a guy who sets the tone and gets everybody on board with the mission.
There's no question.
I think that can be underrated at times.
I mean, I think a lot of people haven't been around great leaders if you don't believe in that, because there really is something too. Like they're charging into battle. Everybody, let's get behind this guy, man, for sure. All right, we have one super chat. What are the people saying here? Atticus Psycho Blue, the homie, he gives $10 and he says, when the Magic fired their coach this morning, we didn't even mention that. Do you think they told him something like, Jamal, it's time for you to Mosley on out of here? And how awkward was the pause before Jamal's response? This is why Psycho Blue brings some levity to the show, JT.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. Yeah, I had some Pistons fans or Magic fans when they were up 3-1 that were like, hey, like, do you still think we should fire Jamal Mosley? And I'm like, yeah, I do actually. Like, it's unfortunate,
tough,
but like,
yeah, it sucks.
I think that there are types of teams that the Jamal Mosley, Ime Udoka, like guy that can look eye to eye with players and really resonate with them and fill them with confidence and like keep like it's more of like that ethereal leadership that we're talking about. Like, I think there's value there, but then the on-court guys have to be really high-level processors, and that, like we talked about, Orlando just didn't have that, and so it's this bad mix where like what they really needed was someone that was helping them solve the problem of what was taking place with the X's and O's on the court, and that I thought was lacking overall over the last few years. And I think the most important thing for them, and some of the names that have been thrown around, Billy Donovan, Tom Thibodeau, like the names that have been thrown around, like I think the most important piece when they're doing the interviews is they need to sit down and be like, how would you structure this offense to make life easier for Paolo Banchero and for all these guys? And really focus on that X's and O's piece, because that is that team. Every year when they get in the postseason, they come out, they play super hard, they play hard defense. Like, they're kind of switch flippy Minnesota Timberwolves East, in their own way, and like with their physicality. So like, I'm not worried about them being up for the fight. What I'm worried about is like, can they be in the right spots and do the right things tactically on both ends of the floor? And that's where I think they need the most help right now.
It'll be interesting. I do think it's underrated that we always think a head coach, but I think oftentimes it's collection of coaches, that you have to have the right collection of coaches. And I think Steve Kerr is a great example of this. I had some high-level assistants there that took care of a lot of this, and he got to do the role that I think he was most designed to do. So sometimes you look at that. How do you build out your roster, your coaching roster? And there's a lot of politics that go into that too, by the way. A lot of times a coach will hire a really bad lead assistant, not wanting, if you fire me, you got this guy that we all know can't coach if I go. It's almost insulation. Like, why didn't they add this really high-level former head coach to be that? Well, that's tough, man. You got a guy breathing down your neck that's your replacement sitting right there. So how you build that out matters. Cue that outro music there, Atticus. Great show, JT. Great first round wrap-up show, second round preview show. Everything was good, man. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, man, we are 1/4 of the way through this thing. Can you believe it already?
4 wins. This is so true, man. 4 wins. All these teams have 4 wins. They have to get 12 more. It's so hard to win a championship.
They need 16 to finish this thing. Yeah.
It's so hard to win a championship, man. Until your team does it, you don't realize it. But yes, 1/4 of the way down. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Legs is back with me on Wednesday and Friday this week, so make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.